My name is Samantha Reed, and the exact second I knew my father was finally going to lose happened at my mum's Thanksgiving dinner in Kansas City, when he stood up with a glass of wine like he belonged there, slapped a manila folder on the table, and said, "Linda, I signed this. You owe me." Everyone stared. My mum's hands were shaking so hard her fork rattled against her plate. And I, after 26 years of being the good kid who kept her voice down so the adults wouldn't explode, reached under the table, pressed one button on my phone, and said, "Hi. Yes. He's here. You can come in now." My father's smile faltered. Then the front door opened, and the sound of heavy footsteps crossed our entryway like a verdict. He turned toward the hallway, confused, offended like the universe had made a mistake. It hadn't, because I didn't invite him to Thanksgiving to make peace. I invited him to end this. And the crazy part is, I didn't even hate him anymore. Hate requires energy. What I felt for my father was something colder, completion. When you grow up with a gambler as a dad, you learn early that love can sound like a promise and still be a scam. My mum used to say, "Your dad is sick," like sickness explained why the rent was late, why the power got shut off in the middle of July, why she cried in the bathroom with the shower running so I wouldn't hear. But I always heard, kids always hear. I was 7 the first time I understood that home could disappear. It was a humid Missouri summer night, the kind where everything smells like hot grass and driveway asphalt. I was in my pajamas, curled on the couch with a bowl of cereal for dinner, because Mom had said she was too tired to cook. The TV was on low. My mother sat at the kitchen table with a stack of envelopes, bills, and a yellow legal pad, like she could solve our life if she wrote it neatly enough. Then there was pounding on the door. Not a polite knock, not a neighbour, not family, the kind of pounding that turns your bones into ice. My mum stood so fast her chair scraped. She glanced at me and said, too brightly, "Sammy, go to your room, sweetheart." I didn't move right away. I watched her slip her finger under the curtain and peek. Her face drained. "Now," she whispered. I ran. In my bedroom, I sat on my bed and hugged my knees, listening. A man's voice, sharp, impatient. "Ma'am, we need to speak to Robert Reed." My mum's voice, thin. "He doesn't live here. He's listed here. He doesn't, he's not." Then I heard it. A sound like paper ripping. The man again. "This is a notice. If he contacts you, you tell him." My mother cut him off. Voice cracking. "Please, there's a child in this house." A pause. Then footsteps moving away. The front door shut. And my mother slid down the wall like her bones had turned to water. That was the first time I saw her cry like she couldn't stop it. It wasn't pretty crying. It was the kind of crying that shakes your ribs. I opened my bedroom door a crack and saw her there, palms over her face, whispering, "Oh my God! Oh my God!" I didn't understand the words on the paper the man left behind, but I understood the message. We weren't safe, and the danger had my father's name. That night, my mum packed a suitcase with shaking hands and kept telling me, "It's just a sleepover, baby." We drove across town to my grandma's little ranch house in Raytown, the one that smelled like coffee and Vicks and old stories. My grandma opened the door in her robe, hair in rollers, and the second she saw my mum's face, her mouth turned into a hard line. "What did he do now?" she asked. My mum tried to speak and couldn't. Grandma stepped aside. "Get in." I walked past her, clutching my stuffed rabbit, and looked back at my mum. My mother's eyes were red, but her jaw was set like she'd made a decision she'd been avoiding for years. And then she said the sentence that changed my entire childhood. "We're not going back." The divorce wasn't dramatic in a courtroom way. It was dramatic in the slow, humiliating way, where everyone in your neighbourhood knows your business before you do. My father, Robert Reed, Rob to his friends, Bobby to my grandma, when she was too tired to hate him, didn't fight the divorce the way a man fights for his kid. He fought it the way a gambler fights for chips. He argued about money. He argued about his share. He argued about who deserved what. He never argued about me. When he did show up, he showed up like a performance. He'd arrive with a stuffed animal from the gas station and say, "There's my girl," too loud, like love was volume. Then he'd pull my mum aside and hiss in her ear. I watched it happen in the driveway, once my mum standing stiff, my father leaning in close, smiling for the neighbours, like he was a charming ex-husband, while his words were sharp enough to cut. My mum's face stayed calm until he left, Then she walked inside and threw up. That was my father's special skill. He could make you sick without touching you. After the divorce, my mum worked like someone trying to outrun a fire. Waitressing, hair salon receptionist, cleaning offices at night. Eventually, she landed a steady job as a medical billing specialist because my mum has this terrifying, beautiful ability to learn complicated systems out of pure necessity. We moved into a small duplex in Independence. 2 bedrooms, thin walls, a backyard that was more dirt than grass. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. And in our house, we had rules. 1. We pay bills first. 2. We don't lend money we can't afford to lose. 3. We don't talk to your father. Rule 3 was the hardest, because my father didn't disappear like a normal deadbeat dad. He disappeared like a boomerang. He'd vanish for months, then pop back up with a new number, a new sob story, and the same old charm. Lindy, I messed up. Lindy, I'm trying. Lindy, can you just spot me until Friday? My mum would stare at her phone, jaw tight, and delete the messages. Sometimes she'd answer just long enough to say, "Don't contact us." And every time, he'd reply with the same line, "You can't keep my kid from me," as if he'd ever tried to be kept. By the time I was 14, I stopped waiting for my dad to become a dad. You know how some kids keep an empty seat in their heart, like, maybe he'll fill it someday? I turned mine into storage. I filled it with school, friends, part-time jobs, and the quiet promise I made to myself, I will never need him. My mum and I became a 2-person team. Friday nights were pizza and cheap movies. Saturdays were grocery runs with coupons, and my mum letting me pick one fun cereal like it was a luxury. We'd do laundry together, folding socks while she told me stories about her childhood in Arkansas, how her daddy used to play guitar on the porch, and her mama would make peach cobbler when money was tight. My mum was gentle, but she was also braced, like her body expected disaster at any moment. That's what a gambler leaves behind, even when he's not there. Anticipation. And then, when I was 17, my father came back in a way that felt different. He didn't call. He showed up. It was a Friday in October. I'd just gotten home from marching band practice, hair smelling like grass and brass polish. I opened the door and froze. He was sitting at our kitchen table, like he belonged there. My mother stood by the sink, arms crossed so tightly, her hands were gripping her own elbows. My father looked up and grinned. "Hey, Sammy," he said. I stared at him. He looked older. Not dad older, hard older. His cheeks were hollow. His eyes were too bright. His hands moved a little too much, like they couldn't settle. "What are you doing here?" I asked. He spread his hands. "Just wanted to see my girl." My mum's voice was flat. "You broke the lock on the back door." My father chuckled like that was a silly detail. "It was stuck." "It wasn't stuck," my mum said. "You broke into my house." He leaned back in his chair and sighed, like she was exhausting. "Linda, don't be dramatic." My stomach twisted. That phrase, "don't be dramatic," was his favourite weapon, because if he could call you dramatic, he could pretend you were the problem. I stepped closer to my mum, like my body knew to protect her. My dad looked at me, and his eyes softened just enough to be convincing. "Sammy, I need help," he said. My mum's laugh was sharp. "No," he ignored her. "I'm in trouble," he continued, voice low now. "I've been trying to get clean, trying to get out, but it's hard. People don't want to hire you when you've got a past." My mum didn't move. "Leave." My father's gaze flicked to her. His face tightened. "I'm not leaving until I talk to my daughter," he said. My mum stepped forward, and for the first time in my life, I heard her voice go dangerous. "This isn't a negotiation, Rob." He stared at her like he wanted to hit something. Then he did what he always did when he couldn't win the argument. He changed the target. He looked at me and said softly, "Baby, I'm your dad. I deserve a chance." And my chest, stupidly, traitorously ached, because part of me still wanted what every kid wants, a father who chooses them. My mum saw my face shift, and her eyes flashed. "Sam," she said gently, "go to your room." I hesitated. My father pounced on the hesitation like it was a chip sliding his way. "You see," he said to my mum, "she wants to talk." My mum's jaw worked. Then she did something I will never forget. She reached into the drawer beside the stove, pulled out a little canister of pepper spray, set it on the counter without breaking eye contact, and said, "You have 10 seconds to leave before I call the police." My father blinked. He laughed once, like he couldn't believe she'd changed the rules. "You'd call the cops on me?" "Yes," my mum said. 9. His smile faded. "Linda, 8. He looked at me again, anger and pleading colliding in his face. "Sammy," he said, voice sharp, "tell your mother to stop." And that right there was when the ache in my chest turned into something else. Because a real father would never ask his kid to manage his emotions. A real father would never put his kid in the middle like a shield. I stared at him and said, quietly, "Leave." His face hardened. My mum said, 7. He stood so fast his chair scraped. "Fine," he snapped. "Fine. But you're making a mistake." He pointed at my mum. "You're poisoning her against me." My mum didn't flinch. 6. He grabbed his jacket. At the door, he turned back and tried one last time, voice suddenly sweet again. "I love you, Sammy," he said. I didn't answer. He left. My mum locked the door, then locked it again, like extra locking, could undo what just happened. Then she turned to me and said, voice shaking, "That man is not safe." I nodded. And for years, we didn't hear from him again. We lived. I went to community college, then transferred to the University of Missouri, Kansas City. I worked part-time at a salon like my mum used to, then landed an entry-level job in compliance at a regional bank. Boring, steady, the kind of work that feels like armor. I got my own apartment. My mum upgraded from the duplex to a small house in Blue Springs. Nothing fancy, just a 2-bedroom with a porch and a little maple tree out front. We built a life that didn't include him, which is exactly why he came back. It started with a voicemail. Unknown number. His voice. "Hey, Lindy. It's me. Don't hang up. I'm trying to do things right this time. I just want to talk." My mum played it once, face stiff, then deleted it. Then another voicemail, then another. Different numbers, same voice. Then the texts started. They weren't threatening at first. They were needy. "I'm in town. I just want coffee. I miss you. Sammy needs her dad." My mum blocked every number. Then, one Wednesday afternoon, she called me at work with a voice I hadn't heard in years. Small. "Sam," she whispered. "He's outside." My stomach dropped. "Where?" I asked. "In the driveway," she said. "He's just standing there, like he's waiting." My hands went cold on my keyboard. "Call the police," I said immediately. "I don't want to," she started, and I heard the old habit in her voice. "Don't make it worse. Don't make a scene." "Mom," I cut in, firm. "Call them." A pause. Then, "Okay." I left work without explaining much beyond family emergency and drove like my foot wanted to crush the gas pedal through the floor. When I pulled up to my mum's house, my father was there, leaning against her porch railing, like he was on a lazy Sunday visit. He looked up when he saw my car and smiled. "Sammy," he said, like he was greeting a friend. I stepped out and didn't smile back. "You need to leave," I said. He held up his hands. Hey, calm down. I'm not here to cause trouble." Behind me, my mum cracked the front door open just enough to look out. Her face was pale. My father's eyes flicked to her and softened. "Lindy," he said, voice gentle. "I just want to talk." My mum's voice came out thin. "Go away," he sighed, like she disappointed him. "Is this really how you want to do this?" he asked. I took a step closer. "You don't get to do anything. You're trespassing," he chuckled. "Wow, look at you, all grown up. You got that banker tone now." My stomach turned. Because my father always did this, tried to make your boundaries sound like a personality flaw. A police cruiser rolled up slow, tires crunching gravel, and my father's posture changed instantly. He straightened, made his face innocent, lifted his hands like, "Oh wow, look at that." The officer, young guy, probably early 30s, stepped out. "Sir," he said, calm, "we got a call. What's going on?" My father smiled wide. "Officer, thank God. I'm just trying to see my family. My ex-wife is being dramatic, and my daughter, well, she's got that corporate attitude." The officer glanced at me. I kept my voice steady. He's been harassing her. We want him off the property. My father laughed. Harassing? I left a few messages. That's harassment now? The officer's tone didn't change. Sir, do you live here? No, my father admitted. Then you need to leave. My father's smile stayed on, but his eyes went hard. He leaned closer to the officer and said, conspiratorially, "Come on, this is family. You know how women get." My hands curled into fists. The officer's face tightened. "Sir, leave. Now." My father backed up, still smiling, like he was graciously cooperating. He took a few steps down the driveway, then turned back and pointed at my mum through the cracked door. "This isn't over," he said. Then he looked at me and added, softly, like a curse, "I need what's mine." And then he walked away. I stood there, frozen, my pulse pounding. The officer asked if we wanted to file a report, start a harassment record, consider a protective order. My mum said, "No, I just want him gone." After the officer left, my mum finally opened the door and stepped onto the porch, like the air outside was dangerous. She hugged herself. "He said he needs what's his," she whispered. I stared down the driveway. "Mum," I said, "what does he think is his?" My mother swallowed. "I don't know, but my gut did. Gamblers don't come back for closure. They come back for resources. And my mother had one. My Aunt Marcy, my mum's older sister, had passed away 6 months earlier. No kids, no spouse, just a small inheritance and a paid-off life insurance policy. It wasn't millions, but it was enough to make a desperate man smell blood. I'd helped my mum set up the accounts, helped her understand the paperwork, made sure everything was in her name and protected. I thought that was enough. I didn't understand that to a gambler, protected is just a challenge. The next escalation came at a place my father knew would make my mum hesitate. Church. My mum doesn't go every week, but she goes enough that people recognize her. She likes the quiet, the routine, the candle smell, the way nobody asks too many questions if you look tired. One Sunday morning, I went with her. Not because I'm a church girl, because I'm a daughter who remembers the driveway. We slid into a pew halfway back. My mom exhaled like she could finally relax. Then I saw him, 3 rows up. My father, wearing a collared shirt like a costume. He turned his head slowly, like he'd been waiting for us to arrive, and smiled. My mum's breath caught. I leaned close. "We're leaving," I whispered. My mum shook her head. "Sam, don't." "Mum," I said, firm. "We're leaving." We stood up quietly and moved toward the aisle. My father stood too fast. People turned. My mum's cheeks flushed. He followed us down the aisle like he was escorting us out. At the back of the sanctuary, near the bulletin table, he said in a low voice, meant to sound respectful, "Linda, we need to talk." My mum's voice shook. "Leave us alone." He smiled gently, like he was the reasonable one. "Not here," he murmured. "Outside." I stepped between them. "No." My father's eyes flashed. "This doesn't concern you." I laughed once. Sharp. "Everything you do concerns me. I'm your kid. Remember?" His jaw tightened. Then, because there were witnesses, he softened again. "Sammy," he said, quiet and sad, "I'm trying to make amends." He looked past me to my mum, and his voice got softer. "I'm sick," he said. "I'm trying to get help, but I need support." My mum's face crumpled just a little, and that was when I realized he wasn't just stalking us. He was hunting the soft spots. I kept my voice calm. "If you want help, go to a counselor. Go to Gamblers Anonymous. Go anywhere that isn't our lives." My father's smile twitched. So cold. Then he leaned in, closer, voice dropping into something that felt like an old threat wearing a new suit. "You know," he murmured, "I could make things hard for you, for both of you." My spine went still. My mum whispered, "Rob." He straightened, smiling again. "Just saying, family should be cooperative." Then he walked away through the crowd like he belonged. My mum stood there shaking, eyes bright. "Sam," she whispered, "I don't want trouble." I looked at her, my mother who carried us on her back for years, who worked double shifts, who held me through nightmares even when she was the one having them. And I said the truth I'd been avoiding. "Mum, Trouble already found us. That night, I sat at my kitchen counter and did what my job trained me to do when something smells wrong. I started a file, not an emotional file, a case. Dates, he called. Numbers he used. Voicemails saved. Screenshots. Times he showed up. Locations. I also pulled my credit report, because my father saying I need what's mine didn't just sound like a threat to my mother. It sounded like a threat to our names. Everything looked clean. For now. Then I pulled my mum's credit report, and my stomach dropped. There were inquiries. Recent ones. A personal loan inquiry. A home equity inquiry. My hands went cold. My mum sat across from me at the table, mug of tea shaking slightly in her hands. I didn't do that, she whispered. I know, I said. The question was, who did? I called the credit bureau, and they confirmed what I already feared. Someone had attempted to verify her identity. Not successfully yet, but they'd tried. I felt something sharp and bright rise in me. Not panic, not fear, purpose, because if my father was already circling her finances, this wasn't going to end with him going away. He would keep pressing until he found a crack. And my mum was tired. Tired people crack. So I made a decision that felt brutal and clean. If he wanted access to our lives, I was going to give him access on my terms. I texted the last number he used. Stop contacting my mother. If you want to talk, you talk to me. He replied within 60 seconds. Of course he did. There's my girl. I knew you'd come around. I just want to talk. I'm trying to fix things. I stared at the screen and felt my jaw tighten. Then I typed the first lie of my plan. Fine. 1 meeting. Coffee. Public place. You say what you need to say. Then you leave her alone. He sent a heart emoji. A heart emoji. After years of absence. After threats. After showing up at her house. Like a ghost. A heart emoji like he was a normal dad. I almost threw my phone. Instead, I replied, Saturday, 10 a.m. Cornerstone Coffee, Blue Springs. Then I called my friend Tasha, who works as a paralegal and has the kind of spine you can build houses on. Tash, I said, I need help. Like, real help. She didn't ask me to calm down. She didn't ask me if I was sure. She just said, tell me everything. And when I did, she was quiet for a second, then said, Sam, if he's trying to hit your mum's credit, that's identity theft territory. We need to lock everything down and start building a record. I already started. I said, good, she replied. Now we make it lethal. Saturday morning, I walked into Cornerstone Coffee and saw my father sitting at a table like he'd been there all his life. He stood up when he saw me, arms open like a hug. I didn't hug him. He laughed awkwardly. Right. Okay. Boundaries. You always were your mother's kid. I sat across from him and kept my face neutral. He launched into a speech. He'd been in a bad place. He'd been sick. He'd been trying. He missed us. He regretted everything. He wanted to make it right. I let him talk. Because talk is where gamblers reveal the rules they think they're playing by. Finally, when he took a sip of coffee and leaned back, I asked softly, what do you want? His smile flickered. Then he did something almost impressive. He looked sad. He looked embarrassed. He looked like a man who hated himself. And he said, quietly, I need help. I stared at him. With what? He glanced around, like he was ashamed. Then he leaned forward and whispered, I have debt. There it was. Not love. Not regret. Debt. How much? I asked. He swallowed. A lot. Numbers, I said. His jaw tightened. You're like a cop. I didn't blink. Numbers. He exhaled, annoyed now that I wasn't buying the performance. 50, maybe 60. 1,000? I asked. He nodded. I kept my voice calm. So, you came back because you want Mum to pay? He flinched like I'd slapped him. No, I came back because I'm family. I laughed. Quiet and ugly. You don't get to use family like a credit card. His eyes hardened. Watch your mouth. There was the real him, the one behind the sad dad mask. I leaned forward. You've been trying to pull her credit. His face froze. Then he smiled. Too wide. What are you talking about? I held his gaze. Don't lie. It's tracked. It's time-stamped. His nostrils flared. He took a slow sip of coffee like he was buying time. Then he set the cup down and said, voice low, "Your mum has money now." My stomach tightened. He said it like a fact, like a right. I stared at him. That's not yours. His eyes sharpened. I didn't say it was mine. He leaned closer. I said she has it, he murmured. And she owes me. I felt my pulse thud in my throat. For what? He smiled. Cold. For surviving me. My hands clenched under the table. He continued. Voice slick now. The way a gambler talks when he thinks he's about to win. Linda left me, he said. She took my kid. She made me the villain. She got her little sob story life. And I got ruined. I stared at him, incredulous. You ruined yourself. He shrugged. Maybe, but she didn't have to kick me while I was down. I leaned in and said softly, You broke into her house. He waved a hand. Drama. You followed us to church. Family. You threatened us. He smiled. Motivation. My stomach turned. This wasn't a man asking for forgiveness. This was a man collecting what he thought he was owed. And that's when I realized something important. He wasn't scared of me being angry. He was scared of me being organized. So I leaned back and softened my voice just enough to make him relax. What if I help you? I asked. His eyes flickered. Help? How? I made my face thoughtful. Rehab. A plan. Maybe a settlement. Something that keeps you away from her. He leaned back, interested now. Yeah? I nodded. But I need the truth first. Everything. No surprises. He hesitated. Then he did what gamblers do when they smell a potential payout. He started talking. He admitted he'd been gambling again. He admitted he'd been staying with a buddy in Independence. He admitted he owed money to people who don't play around. He admitted he'd tried to get a loan but couldn't because his credit was wrecked. He admitted he'd looked into ways to use Linda's house. His exact words, use Linda's house. I kept my face neutral while my insides went cold. Then he said something that made my blood go icy. There's a way, he murmured. If she signs something. It's not illegal if she agrees. I stared at him. And if she doesn't agree? He smiled. Faint. People agree when things get uncomfortable. My throat tightened. I forced my voice steady. What kind of uncomfortable? He shrugged, like he was discussing weather. Phone calls. Showing up. Reminding people of the past. You'd be surprised what folks do when they don't want the neighbours hearing things. I sat there, staring at my father, and felt something settle in me, like a final piece clicking into place. This wasn't a second chance. This was extortion with a familiar face. I stood up, slowly, and slid my chair back. He blinked. Where are you going? I smiled small, controlled. I'm going to help you, I said. He smiled back, relieved. He had no idea what I meant. That week, my mum and I locked everything down. Credit freezes, fraudulers, new passwords, two-factor authentication on everything. We moved her inheritance into an account at a different bank with stricter verification. We changed the locks. We installed a camera system. We documented every contact. And then I did the part that felt like swallowing glass. I invited my father to Thanksgiving. Not to my mum's church crowd Thanksgiving. Not to a big family reunion where he could twist the story. Just my mum, me, two neighbours who were basically chosen family, Mrs. Delaney next door, who brings soup when you sneeze, and her son Mark, who's a sheriff's deputy and has known my mum for years. I told my mum the plan, and she went pale. Sam, she whispered, I can't do this. I can't sit at my table with him. I took her hands. You won't be alone, I said, and you won't be the one doing it. I will. My mum swallowed hard. What if he explodes? I looked her in the eye. Then we stop pretending he's manageable, and we finish it. She closed her eyes, and for a second, I saw the young mum she used to be, the one who hugged me in the dark and said we weren't going back. Then she opened her eyes and nodded. Okay, she whispered. Okay, I trust you. The night before Thanksgiving, my father texted me. I'm proud of you. You're doing the right thing. I stared at it and felt my stomach curl. Then I replied, be there at 4. Come alone. Behave. He replied with a thumbs up. A thumbs up like he was confirming a barbecue. I barely slept. Thanksgiving afternoon. My mum's house smelled like butter and sage. The table was set with her nice plates, the ones she only uses on holidays because she still believes in little rituals of dignity. Mrs. Delaney brought a pie. Mark showed up early and quietly checked the cameras and the doors, like he was doing it casually. But I could tell he understood what this was. My mum wore a simple blue sweater and kept smoothing the sleeves like her body couldn't settle. At 3:58, the porch camera alerted. A figure on the steps. My father. He was wearing a blazer. He looked presentable, like he'd dressed for the role he planned to play. My mum's face drained. I squeezed her shoulder. "Go, sit," I murmured. "I've got it." I opened the door before he knocked. He smiled wide. "Sammy." He stepped forward like he wanted to hug me. I didn't move. "Shoes off," I said. He blinked, then laughed. "Still bossy?" He took his shoes off. I watched his hands. Slight tremor, slight impatience, slight hungry energy. He stepped inside, looked around, and let out a sigh like he was entering a home he owned. "Smells good," he said, then raised his voice toward the living room. "Linda!" My mum appeared in the doorway, stiff as a statue. "Rob," she said. His smile turned soft. "Lindy." For 1 second, the room held its breath. Then he stepped closer. My mum didn't. He stopped, noticing. He chuckled. "Okay. Boundaries. Sure." He glanced at the dining room and saw the extra place settings. His eyes narrowed slightly. "Company?" he asked. "Neighbors," I said. He nodded, but I could see calculation flicker behind his eyes. We sat down to eat. The first 10 minutes were weirdly normal. My father complimented the turkey. He told a story about working construction jobs like he'd been a hard-working man instead of a disappearing one. He laughed too loudly at Mrs. Delaney's jokes. He kept looking at my mum like he was trying to hook her with nostalgia. My mum ate quietly, eyes down. Then, halfway through the meal, my father set his fork down and said, "So, let's talk." My body went still. My mum's hands tightened around her napkin. I kept my voice calm. "Talk about what?" My father smiled, like he was being patient with children. "About what Linda owes," he said. Mrs. Delaney froze mid-bite. Mark's gaze sharpened. My mum's voice shook. "I don't owe you anything." My father sighed and reached into his blazer. He pulled out a manila folder and slapped it on the table. "This," he said, tapping it, "is a simple agreement. Linda signs. I walk away." My mom stared at it like it was a snake. I asked, "What is it?" He slid it toward her. "A home equity line. Just a short-term thing. 30 grand. Mrs. Delaney made a small sound, horrified. My mum whispered, "No." My father's smile tightened. "Linda, don't be stupid." I felt heat rise in my chest, but I kept my voice even. "You're asking my mum to take out debt for you," I said, "after you tried to pull her credit behind her back." My father's eyes flashed. Then he laughed. "Jesus, Sam, you really think you're smart?" He looked at my mum. "I'm being generous here." My mum's voice went firmer. "No." My father's jaw tightened. "Linda." Mark's voice cut in, calm but edged. "Sir." She said no. My father's eyes flicked to Mark, like he'd just noticed him as a threat. "And you are?" he asked. Mark smiled politely. "A friend." My father's nostrils flared. Then he leaned forward and did exactly what I knew he would do when the polite route failed. He went mean. "Linda," he said, voice low, "you don't want to do this the hard way." My mum's face drained. He continued, still low, still cruel. "You don't want your neighbours hearing what you did, what you really did." Mrs. Delaney's eyes widened. "Linda?" My mum shook her head slightly, like she couldn't breathe. My father's gaze snapped to me. "You wanted the truth, right? You wanted everything? Here's everything." He pointed at my mum. "She didn't leave me because of gambling," he said loudly. My mum flinched. He smiled. "She left because she couldn't keep her legs closed." The air went dead. My mum's face went white. My hands clenched so hard my nails dug into my palms. Mrs. Delaney's fork hit her plate with a clatter. Mark's chair scraped as he shifted forward. My father leaned back like he'd won. I stared at him, and felt something in me turn perfectly cold. I said softly, "That's your move?" He blinked. "What?" I reached under the table, pressed a button on my phone, and said, "Hi, yes, he's here. You can come in now." My father's smile faltered. "What the hell are you doing?" he snapped. I met his stare and said, "Clear and calm. Finishing what you started when I was 7. The front door opened. Footsteps. 2 uniformed officers stepped into the entryway. One of them, the same young officer from the driveway, called months ago, now with a partner. My father's face flashed between outrage and disbelief. "What is this?" he demanded. "Linda, are you calling the cops on me?" I stood up, slowly, and looked down at him. "No," I said. "I am." His eyes narrowed. "For what?" I smiled, small and lethal, for the things you thought we'd never notice. I turned to the officers. "His name is Robert Reed," I said. "He's been harassing my mother. He attempted to access her credit and financial accounts, and I lifted my phone. I have recordings from our meetings where he admits intent to coerce her into signing a home equity line." My father shot up from his chair. "You little," he started. Mark stood too, blocking him without touching him. My father's eyes went wild. "You set me up." I stared at him. "You set yourself up." I just stopped covering the table. The officer stepped forward. "Sir, we need you to come with us." My father laughed, sharp and panicked. "For what?" "She's lying. She's always lied." I looked at him and said the sentence I'd been saving for years. "You don't get to call my mother a liar when you can't remember my birthday, but somehow you remember her routing number." His face twitched. The officer said firmer, "Sir." "Now." My father's gaze snapped to my mum, like he expected her to rescue him, to soften, to fold, like she always had. My mum stood at the end of the table, trembling, but upright. Her voice shook, but it landed like steel. "Get out of my house." My father stared at her, stunned. Then his face twisted. "You're going to regret this," he hissed. "Both of you." I stepped closer, eyes locked on his. "No," I said. "You are." The officers escorted him toward the door. As he passed the living room, he twisted his head back toward me, eyes bright with rage. "This isn't over," he spat. I smiled, genuinely, for the first time in years. "Yes," I said. "It is." The door shut, and the sound that followed wasn't a scream. It wasn't applause. It was the quiet, stunned noise of a room realizing the monster didn't get to stay. Forks clattered. People think revenge is loud. They think it's screaming in a driveway, or smashing a window, or humiliating someone on Facebook. Mine was none of that. Mine was paperwork. Mine was documentation. Mine was making sure my mother never had to be brave in the dark again. After Thanksgiving, things moved faster than I expected, because the truth is, when you finally give the system something solid, it can move. The police report wasn't just, "he showed up." It was a pattern, a timeline, evidence. The officer told us they'd been looking for my dad in connection with a small fraud ring tied to gambling debts. Guys who bounce checks, pressure people into agreements, forge signatures, flip money fast. My father wasn't some mastermind. He was a parasite attached to bigger parasites, and when he realized he couldn't feed off us quietly, he tried to scare us into compliance. But fear is only power when it's private. Once you drag it into the light, it gets smaller. The restraining order hearing happened 2 weeks later. My mum didn't want to go at first. She sat at her kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug, and whispered, "I don't want to see him." I knelt beside her chair and said, gently, "You won't be seeing him. You'll be ending him." So we went. In court, my father showed up in a wrinkled suit and tried to look like a victim of a bitter ex-wife and an ungrateful daughter. He tried to cry. The judge didn't care, because we had the folder, voicemails, screenshots, credit inquiry logs, my notes, my timeline, and the recording of him saying, in his own voice, that people agree when things get uncomfortable. My father's attorney tried to argue that I'd baited him. The judge looked over her glasses and said, flat, "People don't get baited into harassment. They choose it." My mum's hands trembled when the judge granted the order, but when we walked out of the courthouse, my mum stopped on the steps, inhaled the cold December air, and said something I'll never forget. "I feel lighter," she whispered. I squeezed her hand. "Good," I said. "That's what freedom feels like." My father didn't go to prison for the whole history of our lives. Life doesn't do that. But he did get charged for what he did now. Attempted fraud, harassment violations, a probation violation tied to an old charge I didn't even know existed. He got banned from 2 casinos in the metro area. He got court-ordered restitution tied to a separate case involving forged checks. And my favourite part, he got the one thing gamblers can't stand. Limits. No contact. No access. No. Just one more chance. Just the hard wall of no. There was one more time I saw him. It was accidental. I was leaving my bank downtown, after a compliance training, and as I walked through the lobby, I saw him across the street, standing outside a check-cashing place, like he'd been shrunk into a smaller version of himself. He looked up and saw me. For a second, his face flashed with something like recognition, like he wanted to call my name. Then he saw the security guard behind me, saw my badge, saw my posture, saw the new reality, and he turned away. No dramatic last words, no final threat, just a man, realizing the people he used to terrorize had outgrown his reach. I got in my car, hands shaking not from fear, not anymore, from the shock of how quiet closure can be. My mum and I still do holidays together, but we do them differently now. We don't flinch when the doorbell rings. We don't keep the porch light off like we're hiding. We don't confuse peace with silence. Last Christmas, my mum decorated her tree early real ornaments, not the cheap plastic ones we used to buy because money was tight. She hung a little wooden ornament that said safe in painted letters. I teased her. "That's not exactly festive." She smiled soft, real. "It is to me." I started therapy, not because I was falling apart, but because I realized I'd been braced for disaster my entire life, and I didn't want to live like that anymore. My mum started therapy too. She calls it mental housekeeping. We laugh more now. We rest. We don't apologize for boundaries. And the lesson, the real one, the one I wish I could tattoo on every kid who grew up with an addict parent, is this. You are not cruel for protecting your peace. You are not dramatic for naming the truth. And family doesn't mean unlimited access. Family means the people who don't make you feel unsafe in your own home. My father taught me a lot. Accidentally. He taught me how manipulation works. He taught me how lies sound when they're wearing charm. And he taught me the most important thing of all. A woman can inherit pain, but she can also inherit power. And I chose power